Greetings everyone, my name is Sai, and it has now been 4 months, and I'm still not bored of Undertale yet. And that's a good thing too, because I have so much more Undertale trivia waiting in the wings. And not only that, but I've gone through the game 7 or 8 times now, and I am still finding new things every time I do so. To the point that I now have enough trivia to produce 6 more 10TOADKs on top of this one and the other ones that I've done prior. It is just insane. So, with that being said, let's play a game. You guys should know how this works by now. If you're a new thing while watching this video, I want you to give it a like. But if you already knew all 10 facts before watching, I want you to give it a dislike guilt-free. Because if you knew everything, that means I didn't do my job properly. And of course, this video will be spoiling the entire game, so you have been warned. So, without any further ado, here is the third 10 things you didn't know about Undertale. At the start of the game in Toriel's house, if you examine the water sausages in the pots, Chara— oh, by the way, I firmly subscribe to the Chara is the narrator fan theory. Chara will say, you've seen this type of plant before, but don't know the name. But if you go into Toriel's room and read the book about plants, it will tell you what they are, and you can then identify them as such. So, just recently, Fangamer, the only Toby Fox-approved source of Undertale merchandise, added some new stuff to its supply. For example, I got this awesome Deltarune t-shirt. But on the Undertale page, take a closer look at that Metaton poster there. Do you notice anything odd or interesting about it? Like how it's an exact replica of the poster you can see at various points in the game? Now, I'm not sure if that counts as game trivia or not, considering this is an Undertale Easter egg that exists outside of the game itself, but like I said, Fangamer is the official place for Undertale merch, so I like to imagine Toby Fox had a hand in designing the poster. So, I think it counts. Oh, and speaking of Fangamer, go have a look at what happens if you take that secret discount on the t-shirt poster combo page. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Well, surprised at the very least. So, one of the more common trivia bits I see getting tossed around is how you can use items on bosses to either weaken them or skip them outright. For example, if you save Toriel's butterscotch pie until the end of the game, and then use it in the fight against Asgore, it'll say the smell reminds him of something, and reduces attack and defense. Similarly, if you buy a spider donut in the ruins, you can eat it during Muffet's fight to skip that fight entirely. But while all that is fairly well known, what's less well known is that if you hack the game to give yourself the gold, you can actually buy one of those $999 cost gold donuts from the bake sale in Hotland, and Muffet won't even fight you after that, saying, I heard they like to tear their legs off. However, that can't be true, can it? You donated so much money to us. All the spiders want you to know how thankful they are. We're in your debt, dearie. So number 7 is a nice little bit of attention to detail that I like to call your attention to. During the Omega Flowey fight, you might remember that Flowey loads save file 3 at the end of the fight, thus restoring all of his health. But, did you ever notice that when the fight starts, Flowey actually does create a save file 3? I actually encountered this one myself on my second playthrough, and had a bit of a mini Eureka moment. So, at the start of the ruins, you can read the sign in the first rock switch puzzle room that says, 3 out of 4 gray rocks recommend that you push them. And that's when I realized, holy shit, there are only 4 rocks in the game, and one of them doesn't like being pushed! Oh my god, Toby Fox is the most clever person ever. So it is entirely possible that you were too busy running away during Undyne's fight to notice this, but did you ever see that when Undyne first sees Sans, she'll pause for a second to get mad at him before continuing to chase you? And if you backtrack to that room after exiting it, you can essentially cause this loop to happen forever. So here's a question. Have you ever tried doing an asshole pacifist playthrough? That's where you do everything basically normally, except you act like a dick when given the chance to do so. Except hugging Azrael. I will never not do that. I don't care if the most mind-blowing Easter egg in the world lies behind that do-nothing option, because I'll never know. I will never choose it. I will hug that fucking goat until he is blue in the face, and Wait, what was I talking about? But doing an asshole playthrough made me realize that a lot of the dialogue choices you have actually don't affect that much. For example, with Papyrus, every time you're given the option to insult him in some way, he finds an amusing way to turn it back at you. You call him a loser after his fight and he'll go, Why are you talking about yourself out loud? But one of the bigger changes in the Absol playthrough comes when you choose not to help Monster Kid up after he trips on the bridge. And he'll actually start to fall, surprisingly enough, but Undyne will jump down to go catch him, thankfully. And then there's an absolutely heartbreaking scene where all of Monster Kid's faith in you has just been absolutely crushed, and he says, "I can't believe they just stood there while I fell." And then in the fight with Undyne, she'll actually mention this, saying, "You abandoned your friend just so you could run away." So I have talked at length before about how much crazy attention and detail is present within Undertale. And I'm going to continue doing so now. So, most likely happening on your second playthrough, did you ever try to just repeatedly spare Papyrus without actually asking him on a date in the act menu first? Because if you didn't end up doing that, then among a few other small details, the word date will be replaced with hangout after the battle during the date. And for me personally, I think finding little Easter eggs like that is way more interesting than discovering the really big or really elaborate Easter eggs. Because I mean, Toby Fox didn't have to do that. If that little detail wasn't present, no one would have noticed or begrudged the game for it. And so it's little stuff like that that really gives you an insight into how much he cared about making the game as absolutely amazing as it could be. So in the Snowden Forest, at Dogressa and Dog Amy's house, you'll see the sign out front is rating various smells on a color scale. For example, it gives you the hint that the dogs don't find the smell of something rolling around to be suspicious because they assume it's a puppy. And it also says the snow's rating is white and can become yellow, which is obviously a peeing in the snow joke. But the less obvious joke here is that the human smell is labeled as a green rating, but is colored in red. And while that may seem to be just a quirky, random humor thing, it makes sense when you realize the sign itself was written by the dog couple, and dogs have dichromatic color perception, which means that, among other things, they can't actually tell the difference between red and green. So, it's that time again. Wish me luck. So, do you remember the statue from Waterfall? Yeah, that's right, the really sad-looking one you can give the umbrella to. And yes, from a gameplay perspective, the purpose of that statue is to give you the solution to the piano puzzle room, but what if I told you that seemingly random statue wasn't random at all, but was in fact a monument for Asriel? Now I know this seems like kind of an out-there theory, but here's my proof. The statue seems vaguely humanoid, it has horns like Asriel does, and when you place the umbrella on top of it, it starts playing Asriel's theme music. Now, the most immediate criticism of the theory that I can come up with is that Asriel's horns go in the opposite direction that the ones on the statue do. But since Asriel's horns hadn't grown in yet at the time of his death, I think it's reasonable to assume the king and queen either had the statue fashioned based on what they imagined he would look like grown up, or possibly based on what little they saw of him and Chara combined together. Oh, and speaking of Chara, I think it's rather interesting that there are broken bits of the statue on the ground, but what we can see of it looks mostly intact. And since the statue has its arms positioned like it's carrying something, I propose that the original statue was, in fact, made to depict Asriel carrying Chara to their village. But Sai, you might be asking, why would a statue of the king and queen's beloved dead sons be in the middle of Waterfall getting rained on? Well, what if it wasn't always like that? You see, inside Metaton's hotel, the plaque on the fountain says, Royal Memorial Fountain built in 210X. Metaton added last week. And since the statue is adjacent to the underground's dump, I think it's pretty likely the Asriel statue was originally inside the hotel, but was then dumped here to accommodate the new fountainhead. Wow, I just realized Metaton's a huge dick. Huh. Hey everyone, remember to leave a like if you learned something new, and of course dislike if you already knew everything before watching, because if you did that means I didn't do my job properly. And of course if you guys like what I'm doing here and want to see more videos like these in future, then please do have a look at my Patreon page, because the success of that Patreon basically guarantees I'll continue to be able to work on videos full time. And if you like Undertale, and I mean you probably do considering you watched this far in the video, I currently have 3 other videos for it. The prior 2 Undertale 10TYDKs, and the top 5 worst things in Undertale. And for the hell of it, when I inevitably do end up making the 4th Undertale 10TYDK, I'll put an annotation for it right here on the screen to take you to it. Other than that, just want to say thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Later. Special thanks to my Patreon patrons, Matt Flowers, Von Gola Sky, Isaiah Christo, and Craig McClure for helping support the channel.